Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into the story. Today we bring you the tale of a poor maid and a millionaire who is about to have his life turned upside down. The millionaire laughed when she said, "I'm pregnant." But little did he know, the truth was about to break his heart. Let's go back to our main character, Emily. It was a cold, dreary afternoon at the train station, and Emily stood under the dim, flickering lights, holding her crumpled ticket in one hand and her coat tightly around her in the other. The cold wind bit at her, making her fingers red and numb. She wasn't sure if the interview she was heading to was going to change anything, but it was her last hope. With each step, the weight of her debts seemed heavier, pressing down on her chest. But there she was, still fighting to survive. She glanced at her watch, 8:41 p.m. The train was running late, and she was already behind. Just then, she heard a voice, soft but urgent, calling out to her. "Excuse me." Emily turned, startled, as a man stepped toward her. His clothes were soaked, and his beard was matted with rain. His eyes were a deep blue, tired but honest. He looked desperate, the kind of desperation that pulled at her heartstrings. "I'm sorry to bother you. I've lost my wallet. I just need $10 for a ticket home. I swear I'll pay you back. Please, can you help me?" Emily's heart sank. She had exactly $10 left in her pocket money that was supposed to get her a quick meal after the interview. She stood there, frozen for a moment, torn between helping this man and keeping her last bit of hope for herself. She could walk away. She should walk away. But the look in his eyes, the sincerity, the helplessness kept her rooted to the spot. The wind howled around them, and she knew she couldn't leave him out there. "Okay," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Here you go. But please, you need to get home safely. Don't worry about paying me back." The man's eyes widened, and for a brief moment, he just stared at her, as if not believing she would help him. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. As he took the money, Emily watched him disappear into the crowd, the weight of the decision still lingering on her shoulders. She turned back to the platform, feeling the chill of the night air more keenly now. As the train finally pulled into the station, she climbed aboard, her heart still racing. She couldn't help but wonder if she had just made the right choice. Little did she know, her simple act of kindness would soon set into motion a chain of events that would change her life forever. The next day, Emily went about her usual routine, hoping for some sign of a brighter future. She worked hard, trying to make ends meet, but as the days went by, she couldn't shake the memory of the man at the station. What would happen next was something she never expected. 2 weeks later, Emily was at a small cafe, nursing a cup of lukewarm coffee, when her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. Hesitantly, she answered, "Hello?" "Hi, Emily. This is David Carter. I'm the man you helped at the train station." Her heart skipped a beat as she sat up straighter. She had helped so many people, but this was different. David went on. "I know this might sound strange, but I need to see you again. I've been thinking about what you did for me, and I want to make it up to you. Can we meet?" Emily's mind raced. The man from the station? The one she helped with her last $10? "Wait," she said, trying to make sense of it. "You're the one who asked for help, right?" "Yes," he replied. "I didn't want to say this earlier, but I'm actually David Carter, the CEO of Carter Enterprises. I've been going undercover to understand the struggles people face, and you helped me in a way that no one else did. Please, let me make it right." Emily was speechless. The man she had helped, the one she thought was just a regular person, was actually a millionaire. She could hardly believe it. I'm not sure what to say," she stammered. "You never expected." "I know," David interrupted gently. "But I wanted to meet you in person. I'm offering you a chance to work with me and my company, to make a real difference. Please, let me make it up to you." Emily sat back in her chair, the weight of his words sinking in. She had never imagined that her act of kindness would lead to something like this. David had promised to help her, but was it too good to be true? What would he expect in return? The questions swirled in her mind, but deep down, she knew one thing. Her life was about to change. And it all started with that $10. The next morning, Emily was still trying to wrap her head around the phone call from David Carter. The man she helped at the train station was not just some random stranger, but a millionaire, the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the city. She sat at her small kitchen table, staring at the cup of coffee in front of her, her mind racing. Could this really be happening? Was she about to get a life-changing opportunity just because she helped someone in need? The thought seemed surreal. She could hardly believe it. She had never imagined that her simple act of kindness would lead to something this huge. But here she was, struggling to believe it all. She had heard about David Carter, of course. He was known for his ruthless business tactics, always in the headlines for his success and his wealth. He was someone people admired from a distance. But she never thought someone like him would need help from someone like her. She had nothing to offer, no qualifications, no connections. Just a small act of kindness. And now he was offering her a chance to work with him. Emily's phone buzzed, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a text from David. "Let's meet today at 3 p.m. I have a proposition for you." Her heart skipped a beat. This was it, the moment that could change everything. She quickly typed back, agreeing to meet him, and set the phone down. As the day went on, Emily felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. She had never been in a situation like this before. She was used to worrying about her next meal, her rent, her debts. Now, she was being asked to meet a millionaire who wanted to help her. Was she really worthy of his offer? Was it all just a cruel joke? At 3 p.m. sharp, Emily arrived at a sleek, modern building in the heart of downtown. She was nervous, her palms sweating as she walked through the revolving doors. The lobby was pristine, with marble floors and expensive artwork hanging on the walls. This was a world she had never been part of. A receptionist greeted her and asked for her name. Emily Brooks, she said, feeling out of place. The receptionist smiled and gestured for her to take a seat. It felt like an eternity before a man in a tailored suit stepped into the lobby and approached her. He was tall, with dark hair and piercing blue eyes. Emily recognized him immediately, David Carter. He was even more handsome in person, and the aura of power that surrounded him was undeniable. "Emily," he said, extending his hand with a warm smile. "It's great to finally meet you." Emily shook his hand, trying to hide the tremor in her fingers. "Thank you for meeting with me," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "Of course," David replied, his smile never faltering. "I'm glad you agreed to meet." He motioned for her to follow him as he led her to an elevator. The elevator doors slid shut and they began their ascent to the top floor. As the elevator climbed higher, Emily couldn't help but feel like she was in a dream. She was about to sit down with a billionaire, someone who had the power to change her life forever. What was he going to offer her? What did he want in return? When the doors opened, they stepped out into a luxurious office space with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the city. David motioned for her to take a seat on one of the plush chairs by his desk. "Please, make yourself comfortable," he said, his tone calm and friendly. Emily sat down, trying to steady her nerves. "I'm sure this all feels a bit overwhelming," David said, as he sat across from her. "I can only imagine what you're thinking." Emily nodded, unsure of what to say. "Honestly, I didn't expect any of this," she said quietly. "I mean, I just gave you $10. It was nothing." David leaned forward, his eyes focused on her. "It wasn't nothing," he said firmly. "You showed me something I hadn't seen in a long time, genuine kindness. In my world, people are always looking for something in return, but you didn't. You helped me because you could. That meant something." Emily's heart skipped a beat at his words. "I didn't expect anything in return. I just did what felt right." David nodded. "And that's exactly why I'm here. I want to give you a chance. I want to help you. I believe you deserve more than the life you're living." Emily's breath caught in her throat. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. David smiled, leaning back in his chair. "I'm offering you a job, Emily, a chance to work with me in my company. I want to give you the resources to build a better future. And it's not just about the job. I want to help you find your confidence, your strength. I see something in you, something that could change your life." Emily sat there, stunned. Was this really happening? A job? A chance to work with David Carter, the man she had never dreamed of meeting, let alone working for? She felt like she was in a daze. She had never had opportunities like this. Everything she had worked for had been small, insignificant. And now, here she was, about to be handed the chance of a lifetime. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. David's smile softened. "You don't have to say anything. Just think about it. Take your time." He stood up and walked over to the window, looking out at the city below. "This could be the start of something big for you, Emily. I'm offering you more than just a job. I'm offering you a chance to change everything." Emily felt the weight of his words. She knew this was her moment, but was she ready to take the leap? Emily sat there, her mind racing, processing David's offer. It felt like her life had just been flipped upside down. A job with David Carter's company, a chance to change everything. She had never dreamed of something like this. The possibilities seemed endless, yet the fear of the unknown lingered in the back of her mind. What if she wasn't good enough? What if she failed? What if in the end it was all too much for her to handle? David must have noticed her hesitation because he sat down across from her, his eyes kind, his voice reassuring. "I know this is a lot to take in, Emily, but I wouldn't offer this if I didn't believe in you. I've seen something in you that I don't see often. You have a strength, a kind of resilience, and I know you can succeed." Emily tried to steady her breath. It wasn't just the opportunity that had her nervous. It was the whole idea of stepping into this new world, a world that seemed so far removed from the one she knew. A world of wealth, power, and success. Could she really fit in? "I don't know if I belong in that world," she admitted, her voice small. "I've never had anything like this. I'm just me, a waitress, struggling to make ends meet." David leaned forward slightly, his gaze never leaving hers. "Exactly. That's why I see so much potential in you. You haven't been jaded by the system. You still believe in doing the right thing, even when it's hard. That's rare, Emily, and that's why I want you on my team." Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. No one had ever spoken to her like this before. No one had ever believed in her the way he did. She felt a mixture of emotions: gratitude, fear, excitement, and doubt. She had always dreamed of a better life, but this was more than she could have ever imagined. She felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her shoulders. Should she take the leap? Should she trust David, trust herself, and step into a world that seemed so foreign to her? After a long pause, she finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know if I'm ready. What if I mess up? What if I don't belong there?" David smiled gently, as if he had been expecting her to say this. "You'll never know until you try, and if you fall, I'll be there to catch you. But you won't fail, Emily, not with the kind of heart you have." His words made her feel a little less afraid. Maybe, just maybe, she could do this. Maybe she could belong in this world after all. As the conversation continued, David outlined the details of the job. She would work closely with his team, helping to create initiatives for his foundation that focused on supporting underprivileged communities. It wasn't just a corporate job, it was a chance to make a difference, to use her own experiences to help others. That was something Emily could get behind. She had always wanted to help others, to give back, but had never had the means to do so. Now, with David's offer, she could. She would finally have the opportunity to make a real impact. But there was still a part of her that was hesitant. She didn't come from a background of privilege. She wasn't educated in the same way as the people David worked with. Would they accept her? Would she be able to fit in? "I know it's overwhelming," David said, noticing the worry on her face. "But you don't have to do this alone. You'll be part of a team. People who care, who want to help, who believe in the same things you do. And if you ever need support, I'll be here." His words were like a balm, soothing some of her fears. Maybe she could do this. Maybe she could step into this new world, embrace the challenges, and make a difference. She was about to ask him more questions when he suddenly stood up, signaling the end of the meeting. "I know this is a lot to process, so take your time," he said, walking over to the door. "But I'm looking forward to hearing your decision." Emily stood up, feeling a mix of emotions. She had never been in a position like this before. For the first time in her life, she had the chance to choose a different path, a better path. As she left the office, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was a turning point in her life. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. David had given her a chance now. It was up to her to take it. Emily spent the next few days thinking about David's offer. She couldn't help but replay their meeting over and over in her mind, each word he said echoing in her thoughts. The idea of working for someone like him, a billionaire, felt like a dream that she had no right to dream. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that this could be the chance she had been waiting for. She had always wanted to make a difference, to do something meaningful with her life, and here was an opportunity to do just that. But there were still so many questions swirling in her mind. Was she truly ready to step into this new world? Was she prepared to leave behind the life she knew, the struggles she had grown accustomed to, and take a risk on something uncertain? As she sat in her small apartment, looking out the window at the busy city streets, Emily felt both terrified and excited. The life she had known, the life of a waitress, of barely scraping by, had been all she had ever known. But what if there was more to life than this? What if she could have a career that not only provided for her but also gave her a sense of purpose? Emily had worked hard her whole life, but working at the diner was not her dream. Her dream was bigger than that. She wanted to help people, to create something meaningful. And now, with David's offer, that dream felt possible. Yet there was a part of her that doubted. She had never been in a corporate environment. She had no formal education, no high-status connections, nothing that seemed to fit the world David came from. Would they accept her? Would she be able to prove herself? And then, there was the fear of failure. What if she didn't measure up? What if she let everyone down, including herself? She couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping into a world where she didn't belong, a world where people had everything while she had nothing. But despite these doubts, Emily knew deep down that she couldn't let fear control her. This was her chance to change her life, to build a future she had always dreamed of. And the worst thing she could do was let the opportunity slip away out of fear of the unknown. After days of wrestling with her thoughts, Emily finally made her decision. She texted David, "I'm in. I'll take the job." Her heart raced as she sent the message, unsure of what the next step would be, but feeling a sense of relief wash over her. It was done. She had made the choice. David responded almost immediately, "Great. I'll have my team contact you with the details. Welcome aboard." The words felt surreal but also exciting. Emily sat back in her chair, her mind racing with possibilities. She had taken the leap. There was no turning back now. A few days later, Emily found herself in the offices of Carter Enterprises, the building that was home to David's empire. She had arrived early for her first day, trying to shake off the nervousness in her stomach. As she walked through the sleek, modern lobby, she felt completely out of place. The polished floors, the pristine decor, it all felt so foreign to her. She was just a waitress from a small town, and now she was stepping into the world of billionaires. It felt like a dream, but it was real. A receptionist smiled warmly at her as she approached the desk. "You must be Emily," the receptionist said, standing up. "David told us you'd be starting today. We're so glad to have you on the team." Emily smiled nervously and nodded. "Thank you," she replied, still trying to shake off the nerves. She followed the receptionist to a small conference room where she would meet the rest of the team. As she walked into the room, she was greeted by a group of well-dressed professionals, all of whom turned to look at her as she entered. She could feel their eyes on her, and for a moment, she felt self-conscious. But David was right. She was here for a reason. She had something they needed. She just had to prove it to herself. David walked in a few minutes later, his presence commanding the room. He smiled at Emily as he introduced her to the team, making sure everyone felt welcome. "Emily is going to be an invaluable part of this company," he said, his voice filled with confidence. "She brings a perspective we need, and I'm excited to see what she can do." Emily smiled, but inside, her heart was racing. This was it. This was her chance to prove herself. The rest of the day was a blur of introductions and meetings. Emily listened carefully, trying to absorb everything she could. She didn't understand all the corporate jargon, but she took notes and asked questions when she could. Her team members seemed kind, though they clearly had more experience than her. But Emily wasn't going to let that stop her. She had something they didn't real-world experience, a heart full of determination and a desire to make a difference. As the day came to an end, Emily walked out of the building, feeling a sense of accomplishment. She had survived her first day. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And she knew that if she kept pushing forward, if she kept learning and growing, she would find her place here. She had taken the leap, and now it was time to build the life she had always dreamed of. The next few weeks passed by in a whirlwind for Emily. Each day brought new challenges and experiences, some exciting, some overwhelming. But through it all, she felt a sense of purpose that she had never felt before. She woke up every morning feeling like she was part of something bigger, something meaningful. Despite the constant pressure to perform, she was determined to prove herself worthy of David's faith in her. She immersed herself in her work, learning as much as she could, absorbing the corporate world around her. She found herself growing more confident with each passing day, not just in her work, but in herself. She began to see her own potential in a way she never had before. But as she settled into her new role, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. She was excelling in her work, but the personal connection she had hoped to build with the people around her seemed elusive. She had been so focused on proving herself that she hadn't taken the time to truly connect with anyone at Carter Enterprises, especially not with David. David had been a constant presence in her life since that first meeting, always offering support and guidance. But there was still so much she didn't know about him. He was a mystery, someone who had given her everything but never seemed to ask for anything in return. She admired him for that, but she also couldn't help but wonder what he wanted from her. One evening, after a long day at the office, Emily found herself staying late to finish some reports. The office was quiet, the only sound being the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic outside. She glanced at the clock, 8:30 p.m. She was almost done. As she typed up her last few notes, the door to the office opened, and in walked David. His expression was serious, but there was a hint of something softer behind his eyes. "Working late, I see," he said with a small smile. "I wanted to check in on you." Emily looked up, surprised. "Oh, you don't have to do that. I'm just finishing up a few things." David walked over to her desk, leaning against the edge casually. "I know you're working hard." "I see it every day," he said, his voice warm and sincere. "But I also know you've been feeling a little out of place here. Don't worry, it's natural. It takes time to adjust." Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of relief wash over her. She had been feeling a little out of place, unsure of where she fit in. "Thanks," she said quietly, trying to keep her emotions in check. "I'm still trying to figure everything out. I never thought I'd be here, working at a place like this." David smiled, his eyes softening. "You're here because you earned it, Emily. Don't ever doubt that." His words made her feel something stir inside of her, a warmth that she hadn't felt in a long time. She had spent so much of her life doubting her worth, feeling like she was always a step behind everyone else. But David's words made her realize that maybe she wasn't as out of place as she had thought. As the evening wore on, David and Emily continued to talk, the conversation drifting from work to more personal topics. Emily found herself opening up in a way she hadn't expected. She talked about her struggles growing up, about the dreams she had put aside in order to survive, about her hopes for the future. David listened intently, never interrupting, his focus entirely on her. For the first time in a long time, Emily felt seen, truly seen. The conversation drifted naturally to a lighter topic, and before long, they were laughing together. It was a simple moment, but it meant so much to Emily. She had always seen David as someone distant, someone she couldn't relate to. But now, as they shared a laugh, she realized that they weren't so different after all. They both had dreams, fears, and ambitions. They both wanted to make a difference in the world, though their paths had been very different. As the night drew to a close, David stood up to leave, but before he did, he turned to Emily. "I'm proud of the work you've done here, Emily," he said with a smile. "I know you'll continue to do great things." Emily smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. "Thank you, David. That means a lot." He gave her a nod, then turned to leave the office. As the door closed behind him, Emily sat back in her chair, a sense of contentment settling over her. She had come so far in such a short time, and though there was still much to learn, she felt like she was finally on the right path. She was no longer just the waitress from a small town. She was someone with purpose, someone who could make a real impact. And with that realization, Emily felt a renewed sense of determination. She had made the right choice. The future was hers to shape. The weeks that followed were some of the most transformative in Emily's life. She threw herself into her work at Carter Enterprises with a passion that surprised even her. Each project, each meeting felt like a step closer to realizing her dreams. David's faith in her never wavered, and that made all the difference. He wasn't just her boss. He had become her mentor, guiding her through the intricacies of the business world, offering support whenever she needed it. Emily found herself growing not only in her professional role but also personally. She was becoming more confident, more assertive, and more comfortable in her own skin. But as much as her career was flourishing, a quiet unease had begun to take root in her heart. Despite the growing connection she had with David, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more between them, something deeper that neither of them was addressing. Emily had always admired David, respected him for everything he had achieved, but now, as they worked more closely together, she couldn't ignore the sparks that flew whenever they were in the same room. The way he looked at her, the way his voice softened when he spoke to her, it all made her wonder if he felt the same way. Yet, every time she thought about bringing it up, doubt crept in. What if she was reading too much into it? What if her feelings were nothing more than a reflection of the respect and admiration she had for him? What if pursuing anything more would jeopardize the progress she had made in her career? One evening, after a long day of meetings, Emily found herself in the office late again, reviewing a report she had been asked to prepare for David. The office was empty, save for the soft hum of the air conditioning and the occasional rustle of papers. She had just finished reading through the final draft when the door opened. Emily looked up to find David standing in the doorway, his expression serious but gentle. "Emily," he said, his voice carrying a hint of something she couldn't quite place. "I need to talk to you about something." Her heart skipped a beat. She set the report aside, her nerves suddenly on edge. "Of course. What's on your mind?" she asked, trying to sound calm despite the rapid flutter in her chest. David stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. He walked over to her desk, his eyes locking with hers. "I've been thinking about how much you've grown since you started here," he began, his tone steady but filled with an emotion Emily couldn't quite decipher. "You've become such an integral part of the team, and I've seen a change in you, a confidence that wasn't there before. And it's not just your work, Emily, it's who you are as a person." Emily swallowed, unsure of where this conversation was heading. Was he going to tell her that her performance had been lacking, that her time at Carter Enterprises was coming to an end? But before she could voice any of these thoughts, David continued. "I want to be honest with you, Emily," he said, his voice lowering. "Over the past few weeks, I've realized something about myself. And I'm not sure how to say this, but I've grown fond of you. More than I should, perhaps." The words hung in the air, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Emily's heart pounded in her chest. Was he saying what she thought he was saying? She opened her mouth to speak, but found herself unable to form words. David took a step closer, his gaze softening. "I understand if this complicates things. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. But I needed to be honest with you. I don't want to ignore what's been building between us." Emily's mind was spinning. She had wondered if he felt the same way, but hearing it out loud left her breathless. "David," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper, I don't know what to say." David smiled softly, stepping back slightly to give her space. "You don't have to say anything right now. I just needed you to know how I feel." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Emily's mind was racing, her emotions swirling. She had always known that David was different from anyone she had ever met, but this was unexpected. She had never imagined that the man who had given her a chance, who had guided her so generously, would also be the man who captured her heart. She had always kept her feelings in check, focusing on her career, on proving herself. But now that the truth was out in the open, she wasn't sure what came next. "I need time to think," Emily said finally, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "This is all a lot to take in." David nodded, his expression understanding. "I know. Take all the time you need. Just know that I'm here, no matter what you decide." As he turned to leave, Emily sat back in her chair, her mind swirling. Her heart was torn between the career she had fought so hard for and the emotions that had just been unleashed. Could she allow herself to feel something more for David? Was she ready to take that step? And if she did, what would it mean for their professional relationship? She didn't know the answers, but she knew one thing: she was no longer the same person who had walked into Carter Enterprises just a few months ago. She had changed, and so had the world around her. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions for Emily. She had spent every waking moment thinking about the conversation she had with David. His words echoed in her mind, and no matter how much she tried to focus on her work, they kept coming back to her. The feelings she had suppressed for so long were now at the surface, and she was struggling to find clarity. She had always been careful with her emotions, never allowing herself to get too attached to anyone, especially in a professional environment. But David had changed everything. His honesty, his vulnerability, and the way he saw her, it all felt like a dream. She hadn't realized how much she had wanted someone to see her as more than just a waitress, someone to believe in her potential beyond her struggles. But now, with everything out in the open, she didn't know where to go from here. Emily continued to pour herself into her work, determined to prove that she could handle the responsibility that came with this new opportunity. She wanted to show David that she was more than capable, more than just someone he had given a chance. She wanted to prove to herself that she could succeed on her own. But no matter how hard she tried, there was always that underlying feeling of uncertainty, that fear of making the wrong choice. Was she ready for a relationship with David? Could she balance her career and her personal life? She wasn't sure, but she knew one thing: she couldn't keep running from her feelings forever. One afternoon, as Emily sat at her desk, reviewing a proposal for a new project, she heard a soft knock on her office door. She looked up to see David standing there, a hesitant smile on his face. "Hey, do you have a minute?" he asked, his voice warm yet guarded. Emily nodded, setting the papers down. "Of course, come in." David stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. He hesitated for a moment, looking at her as if trying to gauge her mood. "I know things have been a bit complicated between us," he began, his voice softer than usual. "And I don't want to pressure you, but I think we need to talk." Emily's heart raced as she met his gaze. She had known this conversation was coming. "I've been thinking about what you said," she replied, her voice steady, but her hands were trembling slightly. "And I think I need to be honest with you too." David's eyes softened as he took a step closer. "Emily, I care about you. I've cared about you since the moment we met. And I know this is complicated, but I'm willing to take that risk if you are." Emily swallowed hard. She had been afraid of this moment, afraid of what it would mean if she let herself fall for him. But now that it was here, she realized that she couldn't ignore her feelings any longer. "I care about you too, David," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't want to make a decision out of fear. I've worked so hard to get to where I am, and I don't want to lose everything because of this connection between us." David nodded, his expression understanding. "I get it," he said quietly. "But I don't want you to feel like you have to choose between us and your career. I'm not asking you to give up your dreams or your hard work. I just want you to know that I'm here, and I'm willing to support you no matter what you decide." Emily felt a weight lift off her shoulders. For the first time in days, she felt like she could breathe. "I don't want to lose myself either," she said, meeting his gaze. "But I don't want to ignore what's between us. I think we should take things one step at a time. See where this goes." David smiled, his relief palpable. "I can live with that. One step at a time." It was a simple promise, but it meant everything to Emily. She didn't have all the answers, but for the first time, she felt like she was ready to take the leap, ready to allow herself to explore the connection with David without the weight of fear holding her back. As they talked more, the tension between them melted away, replaced by the comfort of shared understanding. They didn't need to rush into anything, but they both knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. After their conversation, Emily felt a sense of peace settle over her. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, she felt like she was in control of her own story. And as for David, she knew that with him by her side, anything was possible. The path ahead was uncertain, but Emily no longer feared the unknown. She was ready to embrace whatever came next. As the weeks passed, Emily and David continued to navigate their new relationship, taking things one step at a time as they had promised each other. The office dynamics had shifted slightly. There was a new understanding between them, one that was unspoken but palpable. They worked side by side, focused on their projects, but there was also a subtle connection, a bond that grew stronger each day. Emily's confidence continued to grow in the workplace, her ideas gaining more recognition, and her role at Carter Enterprises becoming more integral. David's support never wavered, and he was always there to offer guidance when needed, but he also gave her space to prove herself. Their professional relationship was solid, and Emily felt a deep sense of pride in her work. But outside the office, things were still evolving. There were moments when the tension between their personal and professional lives became almost too much to handle, but they always managed to find a way back to each other. It wasn't always easy, but Emily had never felt more alive, more empowered. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, Emily and David found themselves at a small cafe, sitting across from each other. The usual hum of the city seemed distant, and for a moment, it felt like just the two of them in the world. They had been talking about work, but tonight, there was something different in the air. Emily could sense it, and she knew David could too. He set his coffee cup down and looked at her with a warmth in his eyes that made her heart flutter. "You've been amazing, Emily," he said softly, his voice sincere. "I can't tell you how proud I am of everything you've done here. You've shown me more than I could have ever imagined." Emily smiled, the words she had longed to hear finally reaching her ears. "Thank you, David. I couldn't have done any of this without you. You've believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." David reached across the table, gently taking her hand in his. The contact sent a shiver through Emily. But this time, it was different this time. It was not just the excitement of a new possibility. It was the warmth of something real, something she hadn't expected but had come to cherish. "I meant what I said before," David continued, his voice low and steady. "This isn't just about work, Emily. I care about you. I always have. And I'm willing to take this one step at a time with you, no matter what that means for us." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had been waiting for this moment, had been unsure of how to bring it up herself, but now that David had said it, it felt like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. "David, I care about you too," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And I think we've been doing great so far. But I still have a lot to figure out, and I don't want to rush anything. I'm just glad that we're doing this together." David smiled, his eyes softening as he gave her hand a gentle squeeze. "We're in this together," he said, "and that's all that matters." It was simple, but it was everything Emily needed to hear. They spent the rest of the evening talking, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. It was the first time in a long while that Emily felt completely at ease, like everything in her life was finally falling into place. As they left the cafe, walking side by side through the quiet streets, Emily realized just how far she had come. A few months ago, she had been struggling to make ends meet, unsure of what the future held. Now, she had a career she was proud of, a relationship that made her feel valued, and a future that seemed full of possibility. But there was still something missing. She had worked so hard to get to this point, but she realized that the most important thing wasn't just about achieving success. It was about building something real, something lasting. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that her life was finally coming together, not just because of the job, not just because of the recognition, but because of the people in her life who cared about her, who saw her for who she truly was. As they reached David's car, he stopped and turned to her, his expression serious but full of affection. "I know we've been taking things slowly, but I want you to know that I'm in this for the long haul, Emily. Whatever happens, I'm here, and I believe in us." Emily's heart swelled with emotion. She had come so far, and now, for the first time, she felt like she had everything she needed. "I believe in us too," she replied, her voice steady and confident. As they drove off into the night, Emily knew that the future was uncertain. But for the first time, she wasn't afraid. With David by her side, with her newfound confidence, she was ready to face whatever came next. And for the first time in a long time, Emily felt like she had truly found her place in the world. Months passed since that evening, and with each passing day, Emily and David's relationship continued to grow. They had both learned how to balance their personal feelings with their professional roles, navigating the complexities of working together while also building something real outside of the office. Emily's career was soaring, and David had kept his promise to support her every step of the way. It was a balance they had found, one that was both fulfilling and grounding. She had grown into a leader within the company, earning the respect of her colleagues and proving, time and time again, that she was more than capable of handling the responsibilities that came her way. But as her success in her career grew, so did her relationship with David. They had found a rhythm in their personal lives, spending time together when they could, enjoying the little moments of peace and joy that came from simply being in each other's company. There were challenges. Of course, any relationship had them, but the bond they shared was stronger than anything they had faced. One afternoon, Emily was walking through the city, her mind focused on a new project she was leading, when she received a text from David. "I need to see you tonight. Can we talk?" A sudden flutter of nerves ran through her, unsure of what the message meant. She had learned to trust David, but something about the tone of his message made her wonder if something had changed. She quickly texted him back, "Of course, I'll see you tonight." That evening, they met at the same cafe where they had shared so many of their conversations, the place that had become their quiet sanctuary. David was already there when Emily arrived, looking more serious than usual. There was an intensity in his eyes that caught her off guard, making her heart race. She sat down across from him, her hands resting nervously in her lap. "David, what's going on?" she asked, her voice betraying her anxiety. David took a deep breath, as if preparing himself for something big. "Emily, I've been thinking about us a lot lately, about everything we've built together," he began. "And there's something I need to tell you, something that's been on my mind for a while now." Emily listened intently, her heart thudding in her chest. "You know how much I care about you, right?" he continued, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I don't want to rush anything, but I can't imagine my life without you in it. I've realized that what we have is something I want to build on, something I want to make permanent." Emily's breath caught in her throat, the weight of his words sinking in. Was this it? Was he finally going to ask her the question she had been waiting for? David looked down for a moment, then back up at her, his eyes filled with determination and love. "Emily," he said, his voice quiet but strong, "I want you to be a part of my life in every way. I want us to take the next step, to build a future together, no matter what it looks like. Will you marry me?" The words hit Emily like a wave, overwhelming her in the best way possible. She had never expected this moment, not like this, but now that it was here, it felt like everything was falling into place. The last few months had been filled with growth, challenges, and joy. And now she realized that this was the next step, the next chapter of their journey together. Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked at him, her heart full. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Yes, I will marry you." David's face broke into the brightest smile, and in that moment, everything else faded away. All the doubts, the fears, the uncertainties, they were gone, replaced by the certainty of their love. They sat there for a while, just the two of them, smiling and holding each other's hands. The world outside seemed distant, and all that mattered was that they had found each other. Over the next few weeks, they began planning their future together. It wasn't just about the wedding. It was about creating a life full of love, growth, and mutual respect. Emily felt more at peace than she had in years, knowing that her journey wasn't just about success in her career, but about finding someone who truly understood her and loved her for who she was. As their wedding day approached, Emily stood at the window of their shared apartment, looking out at the city below. She thought about how far she had come from the waitress with nothing, to the woman who had everything she had ever wanted. She had a career, a future, and most importantly, she had love. And as she turned to face David, who was standing behind her with a smile that still made her heart skip a beat, she knew that this was just the beginning of their story. The future was theirs to build, and with David by her side, Emily knew she could face anything. The day of their wedding arrived, and it was everything they had dreamed of. A small ceremony, intimate and filled with love, surrounded by the people who mattered most. As they exchanged vows, Emily couldn't help but think about how lucky she was to have found David, to have found someone who saw her for who she truly was and loved her with all his heart. As they left the ceremony hand in hand, ready to begin their life together, Emily smiled to herself. She had gone from uncertainty to certainty, from fear to hope, and she had found the greatest gift of all, a partner who would walk beside her through every step of the journey ahead.